Welcome to Basic SharePoint 101. We are going to go over a very wide overview of the application and what its parts are and how you kind of work it basically. By the end of this class, you should understand how your files are organized and kind of an idea about what the organization could be. Your agency policy, of course, can supersede what we suggest, but this is just a starting point. Most of your agencies are already established in how they organize files, so definitely go along with that. If you're brand new using SharePoint, this is not intended to throw any monkey wrenches into an existing organizational structure. You should understand most of the SharePoint interface, be able to recognize its major pieces and what the functions of those pieces are, especially the ribbon. The ribbon will wind up being vital to anything that you do in SharePoint. You'll understand the process of creating and updating or editing web pages. We will touch on importing images and documents and where we do that. And we will touch on links and how to use images as links, as some agencies like to do. This is what your page is going to look like, and when you log in, if you don't see a ribbon, it means that you're probably logged in at too high of a level. If your permissions are deeper within your site, then until you navigate down to where your permissions are, you may not see this ribbon up here that indicates that you have something to do in SharePoint or rights to do anything in SharePoint. And so that's all that's wrong there if you don't see that ribbon. If all you see is Site Actions, you can click on Site Actions, and this will be a command to show the ribbon. And mine won't let me hide it right now so you can see that. But if you have Site Actions, you'll be able to click and be able to show the ribbon, which will open up these button items here to allow you to perform some actions. Everything on this site is controlled or populated by either a document of some kind or a list of some kind. And so to see what drives this, we can go back behind the SharePoint site. There's two ways to do that. The one that I'm most comfortable with is View All Site Content. For me, it's a little bit more intuitive than the Manage Content and Structure, but we will take a look at that view in just a moment. In the View All Site Content view, we have the document libraries, which are, it's a fancy name for folders where your stuff lives. And each library can be customized usually by the agency SPOC. Again, SPOC is the single point of contact for your agency. Each library can be customized so that it requires different levels of approval and workflows for the documents in it to be published out to the live internet. When you're an author, and you can make all the changes you want to make, and if your library requires a workflow or requires approval, then nothing that you do will be seen on the public internet until it is published and approved. Now be careful there, because some document libraries do not require approval or workflows. So as soon as you upload a document or as soon as you edit a document and check it in, it's live. So make sure you know what the settings for that library are before you start making changes and experimenting with things, because you're not quite sure, if you don't know what the settings are, you're not quite sure what's going to be shown on the internet sometimes when you're experimenting with different looks, different feels for a page, different ideas, that kind of thing. So check with your agency SPOC again. They are the ones who would have set up your libraries for different approvals. On this view also, we can look at the lists associated with your site. The lists contain items that populate web parts for the most part. For instance, the featured content. Most people have a general idea what featured content is, and we will look at that. The featured content are the story or stories that rotate along the top of your home page in your agency site. That featured content is populated by this featured content list. And so this is a list of featured content items, and each one is its own little editable piece where you put a blurb of text and an image or whatever you want in there. It's a little bit limited, but a quick look at what this story is, a little teaser, and most people use a link to say, here, find out more about this, so that the end user can click on it and go to another page and find out more about that subject. The point is, each of those feature stories is drawn from this list. And you can have 100 feature stories in this list, and then the web part will determine which feature stories you want to display to the public. So maybe you've got some seasonal ones. Well, they don't have to be shown all the time. You can tell the web part to only display items A, C, E, and H, and then come, say, Christmas time, you're going to add in item I, and then come tax season, you're going to add in item B, and so forth, and you can also subtract those at the appropriate times as well. And so just because it's in a list does not mean necessarily that it's going to be shown in the web part. And the other thing that you can see in this view is the sites and workspaces. If you have created subsites for your site that you have permission to be in, they'll be shown here at the bottom of this page as a subsite or mini site, however you want to term that. Subsites are the ones that can either inherit or break the attributes of the site above or the parent site. Things like left navigation, things like the default workflow and approval queues, things like that, can be determined for each subsite, independently of the parent site. The other way to view your site on the back side is the Manage Content and Structure. This is the second way to view it. This, we are back to the somewhat more familiar Explorer type view of your site. What's highlighted on the left is expanded on the right. There are some things, we won't cover them in this class, but there are some things that you can perform in this view that you cannot perform in the View All Site Content view. And so this one has a little more power than the other one. For me, it's just a little more clumsy, and I like to work in the other view as much as I can. For the items that need to be done in this view, the tasks that you have to have this view up to do, you can see the independent documents and videos on GovSpace, and they will say that you have to be in this view in order to perform this task. Just because I like it, we'll go back to this view, the View All Site Content view. And for the most part, you're going to be involved in the document libraries. That's where most people are going to spend their time editing. Any web page, whether it's an index page or a deep page in your site, is going to be in the Pages library. If you have a document like a PDF or an Excel document, a Word document, a image, excuse me, not an image, but a production of some kind like a PowerPoint or something along those lines, that would go in the Docs library. If you have images, of course, they go in the Images library. The place you'll probably spend most of your time is the Pages library. And in the Pages library is going to be everything that is a .aspx web page. .aspx is what SharePoint produces as a web page. And so to get to your pages, you'll go to the Pages library, and to edit them, you'll simply click on the name and open it, and it's available for editing by clicking the Edit icon there. Go back to the library. Your library can have subfolders, just like this one does. More ASPX files in there. This is where all of your web pages should live. Technically, they could live anywhere in the site, but we have had some issues when people have either established web pages in other libraries or put certain documents in a folder that they're not intended to go in, where once they wanted to move them, they wouldn't move right. And then we've got to go to 3rd and 4th level support to make a change to that library structure to allow that move to happen. And so it winds up being a headache for you, because you've got to wait for us to get the job done, where if the page or document was put into the right library in the first place, it would be all cake and ice cream, and nobody'd have a problem going forward with the work. So, good idea to keep things in their appropriate libraries. Let's go back. This is the View All Site Content view again. And the Docs and Images library are similar, except you're not going to have ASPX in here. You're going to have your images files in this one, and your doc files, whatever they may be, .pdf, .xls, .doc, whatever, in the docs folder. The one that I will, here's a couple of points. Documents, don't confuse the Documents library with the Docs library. This is one, while theoretically it shouldn't make a difference, this is one that we have had make a difference, where if we've got certain documents in the Documents library, they won't act right, and then when we go to try to move them, they won't move out right. It's just best to avoid that library. Put your documents in the Docs library, or another library, like I created this one, Docs 2, that you've created specifically for a document file type. Another caveat on documents, SharePoint 2010 does not get along well with other Microsoft Office 2010 version documents. .docx, .xlsx, any of those X suffix document types have a real problem uploading at times, and then other times for the end viewer, they will always require a login prompt. And so if you have to upload a Microsoft Office version of a document, save it as a 2003 version, the .xls, .doc, etc., and upload it that way. Then you won't have any problems. That particular issue is not a unique to Oregon.gov issue. It is a SharePoint issue. Microsoft offers several different patches and ways to work around that. We have applied all of them that Microsoft recommended, and none of them have worked for our installation of it. And so we continue to try to work with Microsoft to find a magic bullet for that problem. It is a problem, we recognize it, but right now it's between Microsoft and SharePoint and trying to figure out what it is that needs to happen to allow those 2010 and up file types to work properly with their other 2010 file type. Another thing, images. Since this is the basic class, let's hit this hard. Images should be manipulated on your desktop before you upload them to SharePoint. If you are out taking pictures for a specific story that you're going to have an article on, and you've got a really neat new camera and it takes 18 megapixel pictures, and you load them into your computer and you put them up on the internet or put them into SharePoint and use them on your page, and you take the picture size, which you'll see in a minute, and shrink it down to about 1.5 inches by 1.5 inches and figure, hey, that's small and it's a great picture and I'll use it. Well, it's still an 8 megabyte file, and it's still going to load on a page like dial-up used to be. Take your picture, put it into your favorite editor, whatever that might be. Microsoft Picture Manager actually does a great job of shrinking the footprint of that picture. You want your picture to be as small as you can possibly get it, and again, I mean memory footprint, not size of the picture, while still maintaining your image quality. And for online stuff, that's pretty small. I have a profile picture that I use for a few different applications that started out as it was over a 2 megabyte image, and right now I believe it's down. It's something like 18 kilobytes or 23 kilobytes or something like that. Your images do not have to be big to be pretty, especially not online. 72 dots per inch is about what most computer screens can deliver, that people can tell below that the image quality suffers. And so make sure that you manipulate your pictures to be web-friendly prior to uploading them to SharePoint. Once they're in SharePoint, can't do anything with them. If you upload an 8 megabyte picture to your SharePoint images library and you call that picture onto a page, it's going to be 8 megabytes no matter how big or small you drag that picture to be. It's still going to be an 8 megabyte picture. Now, we are going more and more into the mobile market, and depending on how people have their mobile stuff set up, they still pay per megabyte or per gigabyte. And Oregon.gov, if we deliver out these huge pictures, we're not going to be a very popular platform for mobile users, because we're going to use up all of their bandwidth, and they're going to be, if they come to Oregon.gov much, they go over their limits and get charged more. So we definitely want to think about being web responsible when we upload images. Same goes for audio files. Same goes for video files. With audio, remember that you are not publishing Pink Floyd's Last Farewell Tour. You're publishing a meeting that has the spoken human voice as its primary sound. You can come down to 8-bit mono and shrink that audio up to very, very small, and the public isn't going to know a thing different. There's no reason in the world it's got to be 5.1 digital surround sound when it's a meeting with the human voice being its primary sound feature. Videos, same thing. Make them as small as you can while still maintaining the integrity of the video, but that can go pretty small. There's no reason to upload a high-definition video of, again, a meeting, a manager's meeting kind of a thing. Uploading, using videos and stuff, that's great. That's fantastic. 21st century and everything, great. But just be responsible about it. Make them nice and small. And if you need to upload a very long video, SharePoint really isn't designed for it. It's not optimized for serving up video. What our recommendation is to get a YouTube channel or a Vimeo channel or your favorite video server and upload it to them and bring it into your site as either link to it or bring it into your site in an iframe in a content editor web part. That's a little deep for this class, so I'll just leave it there. And later on in the summer, we'll be having a session on how to embed things like that. Getting back out, into the view all site content mode here. We hit lists a little bit. Give you a little bit more solid of a idea here. The agency navigation, that's a good place to see what a list will do for you. This area over here where we have our flyouts is called agency navigation. It's populated by a list that's on that back side. And you can see the expected behavior of this web part. So let's go look at how it works. How does a list result in this? A list results in that. Again, that was agency navigation, and so we'll go to the agency navigation list. And here are all the items that are in that flyout, that agency navigation area. And we even have more than a page of them. Okay? The way this works is each one of these items has a navigation key. Now the navigation key tells me where in the hierarchy it lives. So here again, see, airports is the first link that you see. It's number one, it's on top, and it has child links to it. Okay? So let's pay attention to that. Let's look at the airports link and see how it works. We're back. All I did was push the back button, and we're back at the list now, the agency navigation list. Airports, being the first one, has a navigation key of 1. That means it's at a top level of the navigation. As you can see, it was first on the list. It has a title and a link. Okay, you could click on that item in that web part and head out to this page within SharePoint. You know it's in SharePoint because it uses a relative URL. Starting with a slash, it doesn't have an http://www like this one does. This is an external site. This is outside of our Oregon.gov SharePoint site. This is inside of our agency site. And so we notice it's got a navigation key of 1. It doesn't need a parent navigation key because it's a top level link. Now the one below it, if you noticed when we were looking at it, that if you hovered over airports, it flew out to the left and the top link was AirNav. Now it's the second one. The navigation key just has to be unique. These happen to be in order. Most of them are in order, but they just have to be unique. But you notice it says, okay, well here's the navigation key of 2, and it has a parent navigation key of 1. That means that this AirNav link's parent is going to be the number 1 navigation key. So AirNav goes under airports in the flyout. And then landings, it also has a parent key of 1, so it's going to be under airports. And its navigation key is 3, so it's going to be under AirNav. Yeah. Excuse me. And enplanements and runway weight limits all have the 1 navigation parent key, which means all 4 of those items are going to fall under the airport's link in that navigation structure. Each one of these can also be a parent. As you can see here, runway weight limits has navigation key 5. The parent of runway weight limits on a secondary fly or tertiary flyout is the parent is 5. And so runway weight limits here is actually a link, and it's going to fly out when you hover over runway weight limits here, which is not a link, it is just a heading. And so that's kind of the way these go. You can tell which links are sublinks to others by their navigation key and navigation parent key relationships. Now, this has been already set up by your SPOC. This is just a good example of list items and how they relate to a web part. That web part looks at this list and organizes things based on the numbers given to the items in the list. Some of these will have navigation keys and navigation parent keys. Some of them will only have sort orders that you see over here on the right-hand side. Most of the lists that have sort orders, make sure that your item has a sort order. If it is missing a sort order, the web part will break and not display at all on the page. So make sure that that sort order exists. For the somewhat more advanced users, little trick, you can wedge an item in between two others by giving it a 0.5 or a 0.1 type key or sort order number, like a 1.1 or 1.2. That's a good way to kind of use a cheat to wedge things in that you hadn't planned on before. And it's my understanding that you can get as granular as you want to, although that could wind up being a maintenance nightmare. So if you find yourself wedging things in that way, you might want to rethink your structure before too long and get it reorganized. Spend a day on reorganizing your list to avoid that maintenance nightmare later on. Some lists are more complicated than this. Others are more simple than this. The list items themselves, you simply click on the title of the list item and you're faced with this little miniature editing window. You can tell it that you want to edit it, and it's all open for editing. If you're in a position to add a list item anywhere in SharePoint, the one thing to keep in mind, it's all pretty self-explanatory except this attach file button. Nowhere does that attach file button do anything for you in a list item. That is not a shortcut to creating a link to a file. It's nothing. It has no purpose. It was part of SharePoint's kind of intranet-y past, where things could be very, very personalized. And for our public internet use of it, that button has no use in any of the lists that we use. For now, I'll cancel this. Adding an item in SharePoint, most lists and most document libraries add a new item right here. That'll give you all blanks, and you type in your title, a navigation description if you want to, navigation URL, the key, the parent key, depending on where you want things to fall. Again, this is a little bit more advanced users are going to be doing this probably, but just to show you what a list is and how it all works. So I'll cancel that for now, and I'm going to go back to my View All Site Content. I mentioned before, I think, that a large part of your time will probably be spent in the Pages library. And so let's go there, and let's take a look at, let's go to a standard page, and let's open this. Now, when I open a page, it's just open. And it doesn't mean that I have any rights to it at all. What I need to do is tell SharePoint that I want to edit the page. I can do that in a couple different ways. I can do that through Site Actions and tell it that I want to edit the page here. I can do that through my quick button in the ribbon and tell it that I want to edit the page here. Or I can tell it in the Page ribbon that I would like to edit the page. So I'm going to go ahead and choose to edit the page. And you'll see that it's fairly obvious that I'm now in the editing mode of the page. Notice the check-in button. Anytime you see check-in, it means the page is checked out to you. That means nobody else can get in here and mess with it. Now, that's a bad thing sometimes. If you go to lunch and get a hold of some bad sushi and don't come back to the office in the afternoon, and your page is checked in, that means nobody else can get into it to edit and maybe finish up those changes that absolutely had to be done by 5, or somebody's head's going to roll. They've got to call me and maybe wait on me, because I may be involved in a couple of other high priority things too, to get to your site and get that page checked back in so that the changes can be made. So anytime you open a page for editing, it is checked out to you. Anytime you're going to leave your desk and go somewhere, you really should save your changes and check in your page. Now, there's lots of business reasons that may come around that you don't want to do that. Okay, but just be aware that if you don't get back to it and somebody else needs to edit that page and you're out of the office, if I override the checkout, your changes will be lost. And if your boss tells me to override the checkout because they have to make changes to that page, I have no authority to say, no, I can't do that, because they're your boss. And so you may lose whatever work that you've got in there. So it's a good idea to save and check in often, just to make yourself some restore points. If you're working on a page without checking it in for hours, and for some reason now you lose it, something goes wrong, and you lose those hours and hours of work, you don't have any place I can restore it to. So I would say, if you're working with sections of a page, I would say every couple of sections you're going to want to save and check in. You don't have to go through a big gyration to check it in. All you have to do is say check in and continue. And tell it you want to edit again, and you're back. No big long process or anything, just a couple of button clicks. And checking it in, if you've made changes, it'll ask you, do you want this to be a major version or a minor version, which you'll see in a little bit. And you can always check minor version, which means it's not going to go get published out to the internet. It's just a stopping point for you and a place that you can come back to if things go wrong when you're working forward from there. So that check-in button and save are important. You save, just like any other application you work in, saving often will save you time. Now, most of your editing is going to be done under the Editing Tools ribbon banner. Your format text is going to be what you type with. Okay? Your styles for your text can be found in these two menus. You can see the style of that first line of text changing a little bit as I hover over the different style items here. Now, if you want a real clean page that doesn't have any style issues, stick with these styles. If you're a somewhat more advanced user and you want to dig into the HTML and get real creative with your styles, go ahead. But you're a little bit on your own as far as making all those styles work together with what's already established as Oregon.gov styles. If you call me for help, I'll do my best. And if I can't do it, I will get the SharePoint team involved. And sometimes the answer is going to be, We just can't make it look that way. And so the ones that are guaranteed to work are the styles that are in these two drop menus. These are the ones that are predetermined as Oregon.gov approved look and feel styles. You can, of course, check and try to get other things going on. You can look at other sizes. And again, you can go into the HTML and apply all the different styles that you want to, as long as they're allowed by SharePoint and they don't get stripped out. You can apply those to your page. So text editing is fairly straightforward. There's quite a bit you can accomplish with that. By the way, clicking into the text editing section of the page here opens up this set of tools. And so if, like I just did, you click out of that section and your tools go away, nothing's wrong. You just clicked outside of the section, and clicking back into the section brings your tools back. And so these are, pretty much just what they look like. They're going to give you the different HTML attributes to your text that you have applied them to. One thing to keep in mind, this is an HTML editor. This is not a word processor. If you can do it in HTML, this ribbon will help you do it. If there is no HTML tag or attribute for what you want to do, the only way you're going to get it done is by importing an image of what you want, because this is an HTML page. So there is a big difference between a word processor and an HTML editor, and you need to go into page editing and authoring knowing that you're limited to what HTML can do. And so I would, if you're really ambitious, I'd recommend taking a look online for some HTML primers and seeing what you can do. There are a couple of really, really good ones that that are free, and they take you through some tutorials on as many of the HTML tags and attributes that you want to go through. And that's primarily where I learned my HTML. And I'm not dangerous with it, but 2 out of 3 times I can look at a page and fix it if there's something wrong with the HTML. Excuse me. So if you're ambitious, again, that's something that you can do in your inexpensive time, since nobody has free time. When you're editing and you want to put something else on your page, like, let's say, an image, you want to insert that thing. You'll go to the Insert tab, and you'll find what it is that you want to insert. In this case, we were talking about an image. Let's go ahead and grab a picture. A couple ways to grab a picture. One is from your computer. You can do that. It will go through and import it to SharePoint and take it that way. From address, which means that you are referencing an image from another site. If you're doing that from another server that you own, then that's okay. But beware of doing that from anybody else. Other sites out there. You come across Bob's website, and he's got a beautiful picture of Mount Hood or something that you want to put on your site. Well, number one, if you go to that web address and hijack that picture, you could be breaking copyright law. Number two, Bob could change his mind and put a picture of a scantily clad type person on there, and you wind up offending everybody who comes to look at your website, and you don't know it for 3 days because he did it Friday night. excuse me. And 3, it could simply go away. Bob could lose interest in his website and shut it down, and now you've got this broken red X on your website instead of an image. And so unless you actually own the location from where you're pulling that image, I would recommend against pulling an image from an address. And 3, from SharePoint. This is by and large what you're going to be doing, is pulling your image from your SharePoint site image location. Let's go ahead and look at that one. This will automatically take me to my images folder. There we go. It'll take you to your images directory, images library, excuse me, the library in SharePoint. And you can either delve deeper into the directory through your file structure, folder structure, or you can take an image, select it by clicking on it. You can see that you're selected by, you have your location filled in down here, and click OK. And you can see that image was added to my page right where I had my cursor set for the addition. Now, here's what I was talking about earlier, where when I hover over the picture and click on it, it opens up the Picture Tools ribbon. And no matter what I wind up doing to this picture size-wise here, say I bring it down to 200 pixels, I have the aspect ratio locked, so it will automatically change the vertical size when I change the horizontal size. You'll see what that means in just a minute. Now you can see that I have shrunk that picture quite a bit. However, I have not changed the amount of memory that that picture uses. It is still the same picture, and it still takes up the same chunk of server space that the full-size one did. And so that in itself doesn't do any good at all for resizing a picture. You want that picture to be friendly to the web before you get it on your page. There is no method that I'm aware of in SharePoint to manipulate your pictures. You're going to have to do that outside of SharePoint before you upload it. Now, there is also, you can position, you can position your picture in your content area. The top, middle, and bottom have to do with where the picture is on the line that it happens to live on. Show you that. Okay, top of the line, the top of the picture is aligned with your line of text. Middle of the line, your picture's aligned with the middle of the text, and bottom is the bottom of the picture, and the text are on the bottom of the line. And so you can arrange it that way for whatever different effects you might want. And again, you can go to the right or to the left with that one. The image styles are border options. You have no border, these various choices of different borders if you want to for your image. Kind of neat little things. The location of the image that you're pulling is expressed here in the address bar. This one is from within this site collection, so it's a relative URL, starts with a slash. Notice there is no http://www. That means that this is within our site collection. The alt text is helpful to screen readers. If somebody's looking at your page with a screen reader and they wind up, and it looks at reads through your picture, it will read the description of your image so that the visually impaired person knows that there's an image there, and generally, hopefully, you'll have your description of it in such a way that they know what the picture is trying to portray. You can change the picture, of course. You can call it in. This just gives you the ability to put a new picture right there in that space for whatever reason you might have. The horizontal and vertical space attributes simply tell the page how much padding you want between the other attributes of the page. You see, when I put that 100 pixel horizontal in, it moved the picture in by 100 pixels off the left side of the page, and it also put a 100 pixel buffer between the text and the right-hand edge of the picture. And so that's what that's all about. Vertical space, same deal. You can determine how big your buffer zone is for your pictures. Don't put too big of a buffer zone unless you got a really good reason to. It tends to kind of look sloppy with a lot of white space. It looks like something's wrong with the page when you have a lot of white space dealing with it. Any questions to this point? We got a couple more points to cover, and let's get tackling questions if we have any.
Hi, Sean. Doug Sloan here from Tech Services. I was wondering if you could talk just a little bit about the save and that edit thing again. A lot of times people aren't familiar with save and continue to edit versus just save and closing it out, and versus the check-in where you ignore previous checkout. Like if you make a boo-boo on a page.
Mm-hmm. Certainly.
I wonder if you could talk to us a little bit about that.
Sure thing. About saving and checking in and things like that. We have we've made some changes to this page, and we have the save and close button. Now, if I just click the button, the page will save, and it will close for editing. See, I'm out of the editing mode now. Now, I'll go back in and edit again. If I use that drop menu, I have an option here to save and keep editing. Now, what that one does is it saves your page, saves the changes you've made, but it keeps you in the editing mode so that you're not having to choose to edit again. To create a minor version or a hard restore point, you'll want to check in your page. And so save is always a good idea. That solidifies what you've done. But to create a point that you can come back to, you'll want to check in. And you have a drop menu here also. Check in just means I'm checking it in. And it will ask me if I want, we'll do that in a second. It will ask me if I want to create a major version or minor version. This discard checkout. If you have made a mess of things. Many of us are, we think, oh, hey, a table would work great here, and we build a table and we start to populate it, and then we have a thing in front of us that we have no idea how to get out of because it's become so weird, and we just want to get rid of it, but we don't want to mess up the page. Discarding the checkout will get rid of every change you've made since the last time you checked that page in. If I do that now, I'll wind up with an empty page. So for right now, I'm going to check the page in. And what that'll do for me is I have a version 0.1 here and a version 0.2 here. Now the reason that there's 0.1 and 0.2 is because this page has not been published. If I publish the page, these two will be wiped out and I'll have a version 1.0. Any of these versions is a restore point. Now I'll show you again the way I got here. When I was looking at my page, if I go to the page ribbon, I look at page history, and then I look at version history. This is really heavily used. There's a lot of requests at the help desk for this, and it is documented on GovSpace. So that document is there telling you how to revert to a version. And now you have these versions of the page. Now some pages you'll see have already 200 and 300 versions because they're edited that much, many changes for that data set. And all of these versions give you the possibility of a restore point. So if you've really messed up a page, you can either delete or discard the checkout, or you can come back to a previous version of the page. By the way, what I just used was the breadcrumbs at the top of the page. These do work. So being within the training site, looking at my awesomely cool page, I can click on that and go back to the authoring version of my awesomely cool page. And so that's the importance of check-in and check-out. Let me show you what I mean here. If I edit this page and make an even bigger mess of it than it is now, or say I delete something and then save, and I say, oops, I didn't want to delete that, and I've already saved it, doggone it. Well, if I discard the checkout, it asks me if I'm sure. If I discard the checkout, then that last change that I made that I saved, and any changes that you make that you save, will be forgotten by SharePoint, and the page will go back to what it was before you started editing it on this checkout. Now, there's not a series of checkouts that you can go back. That's what the versions are for. If you've got a version of the page that you want that's 3 or 4 ago, you will have to go into the page versions to do it. But if you really mess up in this session and you want to go back to a recognizable format of your page, then that discard checkout is really, really a valuable tool. Does that cover it well enough?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Okay, great. Okay, moving on. That is a basic overview of editing the page. Through that insert, we inserted an image, and through the insert tool, we can also insert reusable content. We can insert replicants to the page or content boxes, and all you treat those, edit them as you would any other area. They're just formatted differently. You can make those links or what have you. You can insert web parts. Inserting a web part to a page is a little bit more of an advanced idea. The one thing I will say is when you choose to edit a web part, if you use an Oregon v3 web part for what it was intended for, we can help and we can make it work the way you want it to work if you have trouble with it. If you use a web part outside or in a different category and you can make it work, fantastic. If you call us, we'll take a look at it, and if we can help you without a tremendous development effort, then we will. But the answer may be no, our rendition or our version of SharePoint isn't going to work like that for you. But the ones under Oregon v3, they'll work. Okay, they'll work the way they're intended to work. We won't always be able to fulfill your need if it's outside of what the web part was supposed to do, but we can help you to make it work for what it was intended to work for. And again, web parts would be a different document, different class session. A little bit more of an advanced idea. Something some people like is to use tables. You insert tables here, same as any other Microsoft document. You'll choose your table size, whatever you want it to be. And it looks like nothing happened. Well, something did happen. What I need to do is click this button that is under Table Tools and Layout in the ribbon. I know I'm in a table because I have the Table Tools ribbon available. If I click outside of the table tools go away. Just like when I clicked on the Picture Tools ribbon is available. When I click in the Table Tools ribbon becomes available. And I go to Layout, and I say, show me the grid lines. And lo and behold, there's the grid lines of the table that I just laid out. You can add and subtract rows, cells, columns, what have you. You can delete the same. Tables are very, very wide and broad in their spectrum of how you can use them, so I'm not going to go too deep into that now, other than to say that you can insert anything into a table cell that you can insert into a regular portion of your page. Some people like to use tables to lay out their page to make it kind of more balanced, so it's not all vertical on the left, but you've got things scattered around and a little bit more balanced on the page. Okay, if you can make that work with a table, great. If you have trouble, we'll take a look at it, and if it's doable, we can help you with it. But occasionally you get, the tables will get kind of crazy, and the way styles are applied, styles are applied upon styles are applied upon styles, and sometimes it just won't work in a table. So that all depends on how the particular content that you want will work in a table. When you get over to the Design tab in Table Tools, these are kind of mysterious little check boxes here. All this means is that whatever this is, the footer row, the header row, is going to wind up being bold text, and definitely a header. Okay. The styles have been added. Eric did a wonderful job in making these work and take over the table if you have another table. Actually, that's tables. Let's look one more thing here and say, let's add a hyperlink. Okay, easy one. I'm going to put some text in there. I highlight my word word or phrase that I want to wind up being a hyperlink, and I use the Insert tab, and I come over here to Link, and I'm going to insert it either from SharePoint, which means you're going to choose a document or a page inside your site collection, or from Address, which means anywhere outside of your site collection. So if you are working in OHA and you need to link to a DAS page that's outside of your site collection, it's still a SharePoint page, but it's outside of your site collection, so you're going to go from Address. If you go from SharePoint, it's got to be another document or page that is under your agency banner, and then you can link to it that way. Let's go from Address. The text displayed is going to be Google. The address, of course, is fully qualified URL. And that, clicking OK, is as easy as it gets. You can see my link there. You can tell it's a link because the link tools become available. I can have a description. I can tell it to open in a new tab. Now ADA compliance, Americans with Disabilities Act, again for screen readers, opening in a new tab breaks ADA compliance. The only time I would suggest that is if you are navigating outside of Oregon.gov. If you're still inside of Oregon.gov, then definitely keep it in the same tab so that the screen reader can go back and forth easily. Opening a new tab or a new window confuses screen readers and can make the visually impaired have a hard time using your site. And display icon, if you've got a document that you're linking to, you can have it display the a limited library of document type icons to go along with your link there. And we're going to save that. And you can see my tooltip is there to Google, and the link actually worked. Amazing. And I told you that I would show you how to make a picture a link, because that does throw some people. What we're going to do is we're going to select that picture, and we're going to insert a link. Notice I didn't go to Picture Tools. I selected the picture and said I wanted to insert a link from address. Now, I'm going to leave my text blank. If I enter text there, it will replace the picture with my text, and just type in an address. Then my picture becomes a link. You can see by the little finger point there. My tooltip to Yahoo, and again, lo and behold, it works. Yahoo's apparently a heavy site to load. So the key to making a picture a link is to leave the text portion of the link. Leave the text portion of the link blank. This is a replicant page layout. The replicant pages have definite sections that are indicated by the blue bar headings, and each one of those headings generates a link at the top of the page so that a user can quickly jump to the subject matter that they want to see rather than have to wade through a whole page of subject matter that they don't care about. It's a very useful layout, but it needs to be used in just the right way. I just opened this page for editing. Now, opening this page for editing did not allow me to edit directly into these items. What's going to allow me to edit the items is by hovering over the link at the top of the page. I get these two little buttons, delete and edit. If I click delete, obviously, the item goes away. The link up here goes away, and this item will automatically go away. So that's the way you get rid of them if they're obsolete. However, to edit them, you click edit, and notice now that is the only item you can see on the page. Well, that makes it so that we don't have a mess of tables and styles that walk all over each other like we used to in this layout, and we can concentrate on the one part of it that we want to edit and not worry about how it's affecting the other parts. SharePoint sticks it in where it belongs, and we don't have to worry about that. Now, when we're done editing a section, it is imperative to use this green Save Item button. The section must be saved by using Save Item. If I use Save Item, that section gets put back in its rightful place here. The edits are made, and everything is wonderful. Now let me show you what happens if I forget. Make some edits, and I forget to use Save Item, and instead of using Save Item, I go up here and I click Save and Close. Watch what happens. Oops. Now I've only got one replicant on the page. My other ones are gone. This is one of those places where you can use discard checkout. Even though I saved it, I didn't check it in. If I check it in, then I'm out of luck. I have to go back to a previous version of the page. But since I haven't checked it in, I can discard my checkout, tell SharePoint that I'm sure of what I'm saying, and now I've got all my sections back. We click Save Item, and then we can use the Save and Close. Now, to add a replicant item, just the blue button. It's already all set up for you. You simply add your text or what have you, whatever it is you're going to put in this replicant section. Again, can be text, can be tables, can be images, it can be web parts, it can be whatever you want it to be. Adding a web part to a replicant section, it's a somewhat advanced maneuver. We have to help you with that one. So that's the different layout is the replicant page layout where you have to use that Save Item button for each section that you edit. If you save and check in regularly, you'll avoid having hours and hours of work lost if you should forget that. Because if you do forget that and you've got hours and hours of work involved, there's not much we can do after you've checked it in. When you're editing your replicant page, these are, again, the links at the top of the page that will allow your viewer to get to content that they need to get to. Well, you notice that when I added a new item, that replicant item 4 automatically went to the bottom of the list. Well, what happens if that's the most important thing on people's minds? Let's say it's tax season and there's a last-minute tax law change that people have to be made aware of right away, and it's got to be front and center on a page. You know, and now you've added a new item that's got all kinds of wonderful information about how people are going to get twice the refund they thought they were going to get, but it's down at the bottom of the page. Well, that's real easy. All you need to do is hover over that item, click down on it, and drag it to whatever position you want it to be, and now watch the top story in this preview mode box. Dragging the link will change the order of the stories on the page. So that is an important and powerful attribute of that replicant section page. This is a very popular layout on Oregon.gov, so don't be surprised if you find a lot of these as you start to edit your agency sites. Say I want to add a new page. I want to start a brand new page because my agency's just started a brand new program and we need to have that out on the web. Looking at my pages library or any of the libraries underneath of it, I'm going to go to my Documents ribbon and I'm going to say New Document. Now there's another way to do this, but it's the wrong way. You can go to Site Actions and say that you want a new page. The problem with that is that anytime you add a page with this method, Site Actions, New Page, it's going to be the Oregon v3 body only, and it's going to be at the root level of your pages directory. So even if you delve down into a subdirectory, if you create a page through Site Actions, it's going to be at that parent directory level that we were just at. Some people have lost pages that way. It takes quite a while to find them if you're not quite sure what happened. And so the easiest, best way to create a page is to be at the directory you want it in, tell SharePoint in the Documents ribbon that you want a new document, and then tell it what page layout you want to use. We go Oregon v3 Standard, just because I choose that. You can do a home page, you can do a replicant page, you can do a freeform page, whatever it is that you have a need for. I'm just choosing an Oregon v3 Standard right now. You will need to name your page. This is the title that will appear in the page itself, the bold text right under the blue bar. Okay, so the title of the page will be shown as the page title, bold text under the blue bar. Description of the page if you want it. And you notice that after I came out of title, SharePoint tried to guess what I wanted the name of the page to be. And that's the name that will be shown in the directory itself. So that's how I'm going to recognize it when I go to edit it next time, is by this name. You may want it to be something else. You can change that. SharePoint doesn't care. Here you'll see in the page layout area, SharePoint actually did me a favor here and interpreted what I wanted instead of giving me what I told it I wanted. I told it I wanted a v3 standard page, and SharePoint highlighted and said, well, you must want a v3 single column page because SharePoint thinks it knows more about what I want than I do. And I'm going to disagree and say, no, that's not what I wanted. I wanted this v3 standard page. Or if you change your mind, you can choose any of them here. But I wanted a v3 standard, and I'm going to click Create. And now you'll see my pages here. I was the last one that modified it. It's checked out to me because it's brand new, and you can see it's checked out by the little green arrow here. All these are checked out to me except for this one. There's no green arrow there. That means it's not checked out. And no matter who it's checked out to, if it's got a little green arrow there, you can hover over it, and it'll show you who that page is checked out to. And so you can see my new one is checked out to me because I just created it, and it is using the Oregon v3 standard page layout. If I want to go in and edit it right away, I can do that by clicking on its name and clicking Edit, opening up my page, and my article content goes in here. That's where my page content will go, whatever it is I want to put in there. So that's how you create a page. Depending on your agency's settings, to publish the page out live, you'll look at the page, go to the Publish ribbon, and click the Publish button. That can do any number of things, again, depending on how your agency is set up. Your agency may be set up so that that starts a workflow and sends an email to your superior who has to come back and check and make sure that the page looks right, that the correct information is there, and then they publish it out. It may go to a couple of different people. The first one that has a chance comes in and does that, and then publishes it out, and then a mail message is sent to everybody in that queue saying, hey, don't worry, I took care of it, this is good and it's live. Alternatively, it could be, well, you know, we've changed our minds and that's not actually accurate anymore, so here you need to work on it more with these edits and kick it back to the author. Or it could simply be a one-step, click publish, and it's out there live on the web. So you should know what your agency's strategy is for publishing pages so that you're certain that your page changes and edits aren't stuck in a limbo state somewhere waiting for somebody's approval when they don't know it. Same goes with document libraries. make sure you know your agency's policy on that. In many document and image libraries, the simple act of uploading a document and checking it in puts it live on the web. In other agencies' document libraries, they will require approval and a workflow and other things. So that is entirely up to your agency, and your agency SPOC is your best source of information for what is and is not required for a given library. And of course, we're always here for questions that you run into when you are editing. This is a very basic overview class, so there will be deeper questions about things as you run into them. Once again, contact information for me. The best one is egovhelp@state.or.us. The help desk phone number is 503-378-2126. And me or somebody else is always there to answer your questions or find somebody who can. And thanks very much. Appreciate your time. And I'm looking forward to working with you all.